Hey, everybody. It are me. All right, let me get set up on my comments. All right, Zany, Fish Tropic, Art Knight. Glad to hear your car is doing better. And that is everybody. Neil, how are you doing? All right, before it gets any later tonight, I've been saving this so we can start the first half of the show without the mushrooms and finish up with. So this is only 1.1 grams worth of tea. You can hear, but you can't see. Well, I got video on mine. Anybody else having problems with the video? Interesting. I don't know. Don't know what to tell you. You'll notice that tea was red. I got rid of that blue raspberry flavor because it's disgusting. And I went with some fruit punch, which I got to say was a lot better. All right. The clock is ticking. So I actually do want to get a little bit of work done tonight. I had a last moment. Hey, Vonk, how are you? Michael, hello. I do want to get a little bit of work done tonight, and so we're going to hurry up and do that before the mushrooms start kicking in. We'll start with feeding the pond real quick, though. Get that out of the way. What we're going to do is a quick water change on the 40. This one here. I want to get in there. It's kind of hard to see, but all this stuff in the back, that's all just mulm just lying on the ground. There's like a fucking pile of it back there. And then I want to try to suck a lot of this hair algae out of there and then just do a basic water change in the process. So we'll be doing it with the regular old bucket and siphon hose like I normally do rather than the gravel vac. But we'll get to that in a minute. Let's get the goldfish pond fed. I'll spark up a joint real quick, have a couple of puffs while we're looking at this, and then we can get on with doing a little bit of work. And then after that, we'll go around and get everybody else fed. All right, let me see. Steve can see, yay. Kane, how are you? Glad to hear it, Monk. 7 tanks running, nice. Why are the names different? I don't know. Is the @ on there new? I don't remember seeing @ before. The new fish are doing well. We're actually going to talk about the new fish tonight. I never bothered to post the video of me getting the new black neons in there. I only got about 200 views total on, well, I think it was 221 when I looked at it this afternoon in the first day that other video had been out. So putting out another video that's almost identical saying like, look, I got a couple more fish for the same tank that look extremely similar to the ones you just saw me put in the tank. I just don't feel it's necessary. My regular viewers already know about it. My members know about it because we saw them on Wednesday. And then, of course, tonight we're going to be seeing them and talking about them. So I'm probably not going to post that video of me getting the black skirt or the black neons. So we'll have a little bit of puff. And then we'll get to doing some work. All right, looks like we got 17 people now. So hello to everybody that's joined us. The mini kayaks are still alive. The one in my 20 has been there all the while. And I saw the nicer one in this pond the other day. I think it was trapped underneath of the island and it came floating out. I think one of the goldfish knocked it out. And I haven't seen the other little one, so I'm sure it's probably under there too. I'll get in there and root around in a minute, see if we can find them. It depends on who I'm looking at. I see numbers on yours, Steve. I just see at Arc Knight and at Zini Zoo Magnificent Menagerie. That's a mouthful. I think I'll just stick with calling you Zini. Laura. Heavyweight, how are you? All right, I'm going to put this out for now. Actually, I'm just going to sit it in the ashtray. It'll go out all by itself in a moment. Let me stick my arm under there and see if I can find those kayaks. They might be under the lip on the other side, but I don't see them. Well, they've got to be in here somewhere. They didn't just vanish. I wonder where they are, though. Ah. Founded them. This is the cool one here. I like this one. It actually looks like it's sitting a little sideways in the water, but it's also got a bunch of growth on it, so it might be weighted heavier on one side because it's got all that algae growing on it. Got a bunch of algae in it. And it's still floating a little wonky, but otherwise it looks all right. Let me dry my arms off now. Actually, you know what? While I'm in there, got my arm wet, may as well get the intake cleaned out. That ought to do it. You can see where I opened and closed the valve on the pump, and it disturbed all the gunge and grunk and stuff that was growing in there and blew it all out. So we got more water flow, but the pond's going to be cloudy for the rest of the night. But that's all right because we're done with the pond. We're going to do some quick work on this tank, and then we'll get back to getting everybody fed. So I'm going to put you over here out of my way a little bit. Well, let's see if we can put you right here so you can see the action going on when I'm in there. All right. Now this tank, the hood or the lid that opens up, the hinge is broken, and so the whole piece of glass comes off. So I got to take the light off the top. And then I have to get the material out of the way. And then we just take the whole entire hood off and lean that over here out of the way. And you know what I'm also going to do? I'm also going to get in here and we're going to trim this piece of Anubias up because it's growing up and out of the tank pretty vigorously. So it's time to get in there and give that a little snip, snip. And I can do that. Like so. All right, so we got that out of there. Just going to throw that in the 20-gallon betta fish tank for the moment, just to get it out of the way and keep it somewhere moist. All right, now let me get a bucket and a siphon. All right, here's the bucket. Dear Liza. Here is my siphon. So I'm going to start with the hair algae. I'm going to try to start with the hair algae. I've already got it clogged up in there. And then since we got all the hair algae out that quick, we'll just start working on all of the mulm and stuff. I know it's kind of hard to see what I'm doing back here. I keep picking up these big shells. All right, looks like we are clogged, so we're gonna stop that and dump this bucket. It's about 3/4 of the way full, so I don't have to fill the whole thing up since I had to stop anyway. Let me go dump this. I'll come back and we'll get the rest of that mulm and crud out of the back. All right, it's one bucket down. All right, got another something stuck in there somewhere. All right, something is clearly still stuck in there somewhere. There it is. Get on out of there. The substrate in this tank is really sandy, so it's really challenging to suck the mulm off the bottom and leave the sand intact. So I do get some sand pulled out of here along with it, but I always just drain it all off, and then when I, just leave the sand in the bottom of the bucket, and then when I'm ready, I'll go ahead and soak that in hydrogen peroxide or alcohol or something like that, and I'll sterilize all the sand, and I'll just pour it back into the tank. So it doesn't really matter if I pull some of it out. I try to avoid it to some degree, but I don't mind a little bit of it. That's another big ass snail shell the size of that one. I'm also trying to get some of these dead snail shells out of the tank. If you suck them up gently enough, you can get them without clogging. Although I'm once again clogged. And I think we can call that good anyway. I've more or less accomplished what I wanted to. Not sure why it's clogged. I don't see anything in the line, but there's clearly something in it. All right, that's good enough. Let me go get the hose. We'll start filling it back up. And then we can get on with feeding everybody. Oh, there is a clog in there. I see it now. All right, and I got it out. I got some mushroom update for you too, but I'll tell you about that once we're done with the maintenance and we get back to the feeding. But it's good news. I'm excited about it. All right, we'll start that filling up. I'll get in there and wipe the glass down since we got it open. May as well. And I'm not going to bother with any hot water. I'm just going to run cold in there because we don't have to put that much on top of what's already in there. And I don't think it's going to bring the temperature down but a degree or two overall. And that's not going to bother anybody. So we don't have to worry about running a lot of hot water. Probably not a whole lot on the glass here. I try to keep that front light turned off when I'm not, displaying the tank on video or something. And the result is that there's a lot less light and therefore a lot less growth. So there you go. That's what I got off of it. Not a lot. So for all the people that ask about the algae in my tanks, and that's what it boils down to. You put a ton of light on your aquarium and you're going to get algae much more vigorously. You'll notice my 29, I seldom get in my 29 and never have to do anything. I seldom have to wipe the glass down. And that's because it's just got that low aquarium lighting. The stock amount of light that comes with an aquarium is not a lot. But I like a lot of light in my tanks, and so I always put shop lights and floodlights and all that kind of shit on them. And of course, the result is I get a lot of algae and cyanobacteria. But for me, that's a small price to pay. It's hardly a trade-off. I'd much rather have a nice brightly lit tank with vigorously growing plants and bright shiny fish that you can easily see, than get all hung up with algae growing in my tank. Don't mind algae. Algae are natural. All right, let me get caught up while we're filling this up real quick. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you about the new numbers on there, Steve. I'll check on the shaking it and see if there's water inside. You can email me, Neil, if you want that Anubias stalk I cut off. You can have it. I can mail that to you or sell it to you. Plants that grow well out of water. I've got a lot of different stuff. I have water sprite. I've got moss, like moss. I've got some dragon's tongue. I've got pothos plant. I've got peace lily. There's a lot of stuff you can grow with the roots in the water. No, those are just random numbers you get assigned when they're giving you a handle. Because I'm everyday fish keeping, but if I actually post a comment, it comes up as danielhiteshew, the one and only, which is what I put in as my handle. Or danielhiteshew, one and only, I think is what comes up. Yeah, stirring it up a little bit is a good idea. You can just sort of wave the hose around just above the substrate, and the really lightweight mulm will stir up and kick up off the bottom, and then you can just suck that out. I do something like that. I just get it close enough that it just pulls the mulm up and it leaves most of the sand behind. Judge Dredd, hello, Dade. That water does come from my sink, but it gets to my sink from a well, so I do have well water. Iceman, you are early for a change. Nice. All right, that is just about topped off, so let me go turn the water off, and then we will be done with the tank maintenance for the evening. Actually, there is one other thing we can do. We can get to that later. It's not a big deal. Although I thought about possibly doing a water change on my 29 as well. If we do any other work tonight, it'll be on my 29. You know how every time I point at it and talk about the filters and how long it's been since I've changed the filters and how the filters always backflow. Well, it occurred to me the other day that I could just change those filters rather than just look at them and talk about how they're so clogged up. I could actually just change them. So we might do that tonight. We might do a quick change on the 29. And of course, I was thinking that while I'm in there, I may as well go ahead and do a water change on it. So we'll see what happens with that. We'll wait till we get around to it. Let's get everybody fed first. Get the lid back on, put the light back on top. And I'm actually just going to throw some food in here while we're standing here, and then we can move on. These fish aren't going to be doing a whole lot of natural looking behavior for a while anyway. All right, let us moveth on. All right, come around to the fancy goldfish tank. I topped this off the other day, but I did not do a water change. And this is another one of my really brightly lit tanks. And it seems like every 3 days I could get in there and wipe the glass down. It's not too bad tonight, so we're not going to worry about it. They ought to call these eventual sinking pellets because some of them sink right away, but a lot of them float for quite a while before they eventually sink. I either have to help them or just wait till they soak up water. But I don't like having food floating on the surface in this tank. I don't want the goldfish sucking air off the surface when they feed. All right. Tonight we fed the tank that we just looked at. We fed them some crisps, the Tetra Pro color enhancing crisps. We just fed the goldfish some sinking goldfish pellets, and everybody else tonight is going to get Vibra Bites because that's my go-to, my favorite food for the fish. All right, let me finish this coffee up. And Tim, I don't know if you're watching or not, or listening along anyway, but hey, buddy. Hey, Redfish, or Red Ed. My diesel heater took a shit on me today. I was just talking to a friend of mine, Tim, about it. He's thinking about getting one, and I was recommending it. You do have to occasionally disassemble the whole thing and take the firebox apart and everything. The soot builds up in there, and when the soot gets too thick, it prevents the heat transfer and it won't fire. It just keeps blowing out, and you get an error code saying a flame out due to lack of oil. And so I took it all apart today. I stripped it all down, cleaned it all out, put it back together, which I've done before, so it wasn't that big of a deal. It took me maybe an hour total. It's a little messy, but whatever. Put it back together, and it ran great. for about 2 hours, and then I slowed it down to like a really low level, and it shut off on me again. But this time the error code said it was an unstable electrical source. So I shut it off. I started it again. It ran fine for a little while, and then it shut off, and it gave me the electrical code again. And so I did the ultimate, which was unplugging it and plugging it back in after 10 seconds, and it ran fine again. And then when I lowered the level, it shut off again on me and said it was the regular flame out error code saying there was no fuel in it. And I got the smell from like the back exhaust where it wasn't burning properly. And so I don't know what to say. I mean, I cleaned the whole thing out, but something in there is working right. I'm getting multiple different error codes. It starts for a little while, but then cuts back off. And so I've been using the thing for 3 years, which technically isn't really that long, but I got 2 full years out of it. And I use it a lot. So, I mean, it runs like all day in the winter. So I got a couple good years out of it. And today I just decided, instead of fucking with this one and trying to figure out what's wrong with it, I just bought a new one. There's special Black Friday deals going on, and I got a pretty good price. I got it for $84. I think I paid $160 for it when I bought it originally. And when I looked at the other models, they were down to like $120 or something like that. So I still got it for $84 instead of $120. But I had to spend another $84 to get a new damn heater, or again, keep fucking with this one and try to figure out what's wrong with it. I don't know what would be causing the electrical error code. I'm wondering if I didn't break a wire or something when I was reassembling it. I don't think I did. Everything went back together perfectly easily. But now I'm getting this weird electrical code. So I don't know what to make of it. That's what you get for buying cheap stuff. It's a Vivor brand. They're usually about half the cost of everything else, and it's because they skimp on everything. All right, Red Ed and Bobby said hello, Red fish, blue fish, one fish, two fish. TK, hello. How are you this evening? Well, it's only free heating if you light your farts on fire, and I've known people that have done that and regretted it. So let us moveth on to the next tank. I'll actually turn the spotlight on and see if I can get a nice, good, bright light on the fish. These fish really light up if you can hit them with the spotlight and not freak them out too badly. All right, we're going to start with the tropical crisps again in here for all the smaller fish, and then we'll come back with the algae wafers. One thing I will say for anybody that's considering silver dollars, they are awesome fish, and I really like them a lot, but they're really skittish, and even just walking past the tank or any fast hand movements, they dart and dash, and mine have gotten kind of used to their tanks, so they don't really bash into stuff very often, but I do see them crash into the woodwork, and I see a bunch of little silver scales falling in the water, and so, you know, they can injure themselves. So if you've got a house with like a dog or kids that run around or loud noises, or your tank is like right in Grand Central where everybody walks past it, maybe not the best tank to put silver dollars in. But otherwise, they are fantastic fish. These silver dollars will even scatter, as do a lot of fish. I think it's instinctual. If I like reach over the tank, well, you can't see my hand, but if I actually like reach over the tank too far and don't put the food right in at the edge, but I try to drop it in the middle, just my hand moving over top the tank, I guess, again, it's that sort of evade predators type instinct. If you see something overhead, it could be a bird or something. They all scatter when I stick my hand over top the tank. All right, let me spark my joint back up here. Thank you, Dade. I got a canister filter on this tank, and I haven't changed it since the summertime, but I went a year without changing it last time, so I'm not too worried about it. Oh, that's cool, Laura. Red King Kong parrot in there. I think I'll give that one a miss. I was actually thinking about fish recommendations today. I have a lot of people recommend me fish. Oh, you know what else we can do while we're in here tonight? We can go ahead and scoop some more duckweed out of the 40. That'll be something to do. It'll take a minute. gotta burn up the runtime somehow. I almost went. Excuse me. I almost went to Petco today and bought some neons, but I thought better of it. I was on mushrooms last night, like really good and solid on mushrooms last night. And I just started thinking about some of the tanks, and I got the idea that neons in my little shrimp tank would look amazing. And I think they would. But I did a little bit of research, and pretty much any fish out there is going to eat baby shrimp. Baby shrimp are fucking tiny. You can barely see them. And even when they've grown all the way up to like where you can see them, they're still tiny. Once they're, half grown, neons probably wouldn't be able to eat them anymore, but they'd definitely be able to clean out the babies. And I kind of like that tank just overflowing with shrimp like that. And if I put neons in there, they'll regulate the population. Like I'll have the adults, but I won't get more breeding shrimp. If I want more in there, I'll have to add more adult shrimp at some point because the neons, I think, will make such good work of the babies. The other alternative is that I've got enough stuff in that tank that the shrimp will have places to hide, that the neons won't be able to get to them. But again, they would have to stay in there until they were grown big enough that the neons couldn't eat them. So I'm still on the fence about whether I want to add any fish to that little 5-gallon tank or not. It's a toss-up between 5 neons or a betta fish, or possibly even a betta fish and 5 neons. But again, I would have to seriously consider what would happen to the shrimp population if I did it, putting fish in there. Yeah, I figured the neons would be okay because they have such tiny little mouths. But again, they would definitely feed on the babies. And if they clean out all the babies, that leaves me with a non-viable breeding. Like the adult shrimp can keep on making babies, but the neons are just going to keep on eating the babies. I don't think very many of them will ever grow to adult size. But as I said, I have 2 other tanks that are just full of breeding shrimp, and I can always sort of restock it. So I haven't decided not to. I just, I used good judgment for once in my life. And then, instead of going on this spur of the moment idea while I was tripping last night of like, hey, that would look awesome. Like, let me think about it a little longer before I run right out and buy neons to throw in that tank. Because again, I may want to put a betta fish in there. I did look up a betta fish with shrimp, and it warned even more against it than the neons. The betta fish are actually a predatory fish that like little worms and insect larvae and stuff like that is what they feed on in nature. And so putting them in a tank with shrimp, they're just going to go after them. And I already see my betta fish upstairs and in the tank here. I've never seen them actually catch and eat a shrimp, but I do see them chase the shrimp occasionally. So I think a betta fish would be even more devastating to the shrimp population, which is what was leaning me towards thinking about the neons. You think I do a lot of thinking under normal circumstances. You ought to see what goes on in my brain under mushroom circumstances. I spent way too much time thinking about that little 5-gallon last night. Yeah, I thought about the embers, but I don't think they would pop quite the same. They'd go well with the red plants and stuff in there. And so the ember tetras were on my list. Hello, Anna, by the way. You recommend neons with shrimp? All right, well, maybe I'll, after I get done whistling at you, I'll reconsider that. I'll think about that some more. But anyway, this is exactly why I didn't just go and do it. I wanted to talk about it, get people's opinion, and just give it a little more thought. Denvers are okay with shrimp. They're neocardinia. Oh, you have guppies and neons. Okay, well, that's good to know then. And yeah, there's plenty of hiding places in there. That's not a problem. And I decided that if I do put fish in there, I'm also going to make a little pile of rocks in the back corner that would prevent, maybe I'll make a little ring of rocks and then put a flat rock on top of it. And that'll give the shrimp a place to go, like a cave they can get into. And it'll be an absolute secure hiding spot rather than just, hiding amongst the branches and bushes of the leaves and stuff. Get those neons together, no problem. The silver dollars can get injured if they, well, pretty much any fish can if they are startled and they swim into something. I've had fish swim into pointy bits of woodwork and gouge their eyes before or scrape their scales. I've had fish that are startled swim into the glass and injure themselves by swimming into the glass. So you definitely got to be careful with startling fish. Shrimp killer and a snail biter. Nice. Fish Tropic, how are you? Yeah, that's a good analogy, Steve. Although apparently that's not accurate, but that's the way I was kind of thinking about it. Do I either have a pack of hunters that aren't going to be as aggressive, or do I have like one lonely, large-mouthed aggressive hunter in there? Because again, I can watch my betta fish upstairs and even my new betta fish, No Face down here. I've seen him go after the shrimp. Never seen him catch one or actually try to eat it, but they do have that hunting instinct. They see that little shrimp moving and they go after it. I saw neons in the tank the other day that looked odd. It was a big tank full of neons, except about a third of them looked like they had been through the washing machine and some of their color ran, and they weren't quite as vibrant. And like the top part was sort of washed out. They weren't really red. They just kind of had like blue. And when I looked at the label to see if like what was going on, apparently it was two different kinds of neons in there, and they were selling them as gold neons, which I didn't see any gold coloration. It wasn't even like a pale yellowy. It just looked, I don't know, it just looked sort of like washed out red. But they were selling them as gold neons, and so they were the same price, but I didn't think they were nearly as attractive as actual neons. And so maybe if they fit the color scheme of your tank just right, maybe somebody might like them. But I can't imagine why you'd buy them over the actual neons that were in the tank right there with them, because they were sparkly, shiny, well, they look like neons. All right, and there's a fair amount of the duckweed. Pretty good chunk. So we'll go ahead and put that over here in the pond. It's getting hard to see it. Got another plant upstairs that isn't doing well in the kitchen because it's not getting enough light. And my wife asked me if I could bring it down here and do something with it. I'm thinking about taking one of my grow tents that I'm not using and actually just, all the stuff we want to try to overwinter, instead of sticking it down here and trying to do everything in the fish room, I may just stick some stuff in one of my grow tents and use my actual grow light on them. But the problem would be is we just, other than me tending to them and making sure they were watered and everything, it's not like we'd get to enjoy the plants. They'd just be sort of surviving in my, one of my tents over the winter. So I don't know, but probably going to have another plant down here soon. I don't even know what kind it is, but it's not doing well. And we suspect it's because it's just not getting enough light. I don't have like real grow lights in my kitchen. Well, I do have one. It's the same kind I have over the pond here, but it's high up and there's only so much it can do, and there's only so much we can pack underneath of it. Most of the lights in the kitchen are just underneath the regular either floodlights or they're near the back window. Our kitchen faces south. And it just, especially this time of year, we're just not getting enough light for these plants. All right, let's see where I was. I do have some gouramis. We'll be getting to the gourami tank here in a few minutes. I have pearl gouramis at the moment. Yeah, well, that's what, is making my decision, Ark, is whether or not I want to have that as a tank with some shrimp in it, or do I want to have it like just a shrimp tank that's just breeding shrimp like crazy. I don't think I can have it both ways. I do quarantine fish under certain circumstances. I don't always quarantine. There's nothing in my life that I always do as a hard and fast rule. But I definitely don't quarantine as a rule. I believe if I had to just, pick a side, I would say, yes, you should quarantine as a rule. But, in real world circumstances, I don't always do that. Let's see. How many fish are in my 40 breeder? I have no idea. 20 maybe. I don't know. 15. Oh, yeah, Laura. We can definitely chop the dragon's tongue down tonight. Give the goldfish even more food. No, that sounds cool, Vonk. I don't know what that fish is either. I got a chocolate gourami once, and I did love it, but it didn't survive very long. I had it in my gourami tank, and I think they need to be in more suitable conditions. I think it was just too boisterous of a tank. It was too wide open. The water was moving too much for it. I needed to have that in like a 20-gallon that was very calm, didn't have a lot of other active fish in it. And I think it would have done well. I think my water is okay for the chocolate gourami. I just don't think I put it in the right environment. Yeah, 3-spot will destroy a dwarf gourami. You should probably separate them if you can. Get that dwarf out of there before it gets killed. Well, the blue gourami and the gold gourami, they're all the same gourami. It's the trichogaster, trichopotis, I believe. No, I always say that. That's the snakeskin gourami. Trichogaster trichopterus. I think that's the 3-spot. Trichogaster trichopterus. If you look up the 3-spot gourami, the true name of it, the Trichogaster trichopterus, if that is indeed it. I think that's it. All of those other ones you see that are like the gold gourami and the lavender gourami and the opaline gourami and the blue gourami, they're all the same gourami. It's just different paint jobs. It's, they say it's a color morph, but effectively it's just a different paint job. They're all that same species of gourami. And I like that species of gourami visually. But as far as like wanting to own it, it's my least favorite gourami out of all of them. Moonlights are amazing. I love the moonlight gouramis. The snakeskins are really cool. Obviously, I love my pearl gouramis. I think they're amazing. Dwarf gouramis, I like them, but they always seem to die within about 9 months, and so I kind of given up on keeping them. But the 3-spots, and all the various color morphs of the 3-spot are the gourami I've always had the most problem with when it comes to aggression. I think they really get oversold as friendly community fish. At the very least, I don't think they should be sold as aggressive fish by any means, but they should come with that caveat, community fish with caution. Learn about this fish, know what other kind of fish it can deal with and what kind of habitat it needs. And yes, if you set your community up right, you can have one, that's not a dick to all your other fish. Trying to put multiple gouramis into the same tank, that's where it starts getting really complicated. I've tried everything from 8 to 2. And when it comes to the 3 spots, I've never had gouramis get along. There's either always one asshole in the group or one of the 2 doesn't get along. There's just always been problems with me keeping multiple 3 spots. And eventually I just stopped keeping them all together. I haven't even considered getting another blue gourami or something. I don't know. Maybe, who knows? Maybe when all the pearl gouramis die off, instead of getting a group of them, I'll just try putting a single opaline gourami. The opaline is my favorite. Honestly, I really like that opaline. I used to have a tank full of them. That's why my gourami tank is called my gourami tank. I used to have 8 opaline gouramis in there. It was awesome, but it was a nightmare trying to keep them from killing each other. I'm not sure what honest answer you got, Anna, but you're quite welcome, and that's all you're ever going to get from me. Ask Zany. I don't bullshit. Well, that's just it, Ark. I don't have any actual moss in there. I've got the crypt, and then I've got that big piece of wood, and I have some rocks. And so there are hiding places, but it's not like what you're looking at now, where I've got all of those tetras in there, but I somehow still have shrimp. I don't think they're breeding, and I certainly don't have lots of shrimp, but there are still shrimp living in that tank with all those tetras in there. And you better believe those tetras will go after a shrimp if they see it swimming around in the water. I had a paradise fish once, but a paradise fish is not a gourami. Unless you're talking about something different. A paradise gourami I've never heard of, but the paradise fish is similar to a gourami, but it's not a gourami. I had one of those a long time ago. I don't really remember having a good time with it. And I've tried honey gouramis, but again, a honey gourami needs to be in a really calm, chilled out tank. And I tried putting it in my gourami tank with all those other fish. And the honey gouramis I got have never lasted very long. And so I didn't do much with I've never done much with the honey gouramis. We will talk about my mushrooms here in a minute. Hey, Mike. Did you give him a timeout, Bobby? Well, I'm reluctant. I don't want to put moss in that tank because it's so small. I've already got Java moss that grows from the filter and gets down into the tank, and I always pull it out of there before it actually gets a hold of anything in the tank. I don't really want the Java moss growing in there because, I mean, it can eat the inside of a 55, let alone a 5. No, I don't hatch brine shrimp. I did meet up with a guy today, and I gave him those plants that I pulled out of the tank. Oh, Neil, if you're still watching, I saw that you emailed me, so I'll get back to you tomorrow. We'll get that plant off to you, and I can probably send you some other stuff while we're in there. But when I dropped those plants off to him today, he gave me a batch of fruit fly cultures. And so he said that I probably should let them grow for a few more days before I really start, using them. But he gave me a big old container of it. I don't know what fish I'm going to use it for. Probably my betta tanks. I think a betta fish would like the fruit flies. But he gave me a nice big fucking container. It's full of culture or, food and whatnot for them. So that was awesome. Appreciate that. If you're watching there, Kane. All right, let me feed these guys. We're just doing some granules. And then I'm going to make what's probably going to be my first of multiple trips to the little boys' room. Oh, man, it's almost 9 o'clock already. Maybe not. All right, give me a second. Let me put you on mute here. All right. Steve, I don't know if you're still here, but I wanted you to hear this too. Oh, hey, Kane. I thought you were here somewhere. So, Steve, I don't know if you're still awake, but as far as my mushrooms go, I got that one final mushroom, which was the fourth flush. And when I cut it down, I weighed it immediately. When it was fresh cut, it was 24 grams. It was almost an ounce by itself. And I have heard that mushrooms are approximately 90% water weight. And so I weighed it 24 grams. I dried it out. And when it was done drying, it weighed 2.6 grams or 2.7 grams. So I did the math and it came out to less than 11%. So just over 10% is what I ended up with after drying the mushroom out. So that is proof positive that mushrooms are 90% water weight when you harvest them fresh. So my 27 gram mushroom dried out to, or my 24-gram mushroom dried out to 2.7 grams. And again, it may even still have had a tiny little bit of moisture in there. I might have, if I left it in the dryer longer, I might have even been able to bring it down closer to an actual 10%. So that was the one I just cut down yesterday. That's actually I chopped the stem off tonight and ate the stem as my mushroom tea for this evening. I'm saving the cap for tomorrow night. The cap is the heavier part. I only ate 1.1 grams today, and I'll have the 1.6, for my Saturday night. However, I put my mushroom bag back in, and we're going to leave it in there and wait. There's one little area where this mushroom came out of that the mycelium still looks kind of white and fresh. And it's not out of the question that I may get one more mushroom that comes out of that. And considering I'm getting, 2.5 or 3 grams of dried mushroom from a single mushroom, it's going to be worth waiting for to see if I get another one. There are 7 gouramis in there, although they're not making themselves easily seen. You can see a gourami up there by the angelfish. The top left, as you pointed out, we got the gourami down here. And we got 3 of them up here. So there's 3. That one makes 4. So unless I've lost some, there should be 7 of them in there last time I counted, but I'm only seeing 4 now. So I suppose it's possible over the months. I don't remember when the last time I counted was. But somebody asked me how many gouramis I had in there, and we counted them one night, and I came up with 6, even though I thought there were 7. And when I looked the next day, I did count 7. So we missed one the night I had counted. So maybe we're missing 3 now. It's entirely possible those 3 have died and I just haven't noticed. So we might only have 4 gouramis left in the tank at the moment. But those are pearl gouramis. Yeah, those are actually modified ventral fins. They use them like feelers, but those are actually fins. You inoculated your bag. Nice. So you counted 5. All right, nice. I only see 4 at the moment. So back to the mushroom saga. If you remember, I said that I had ruined those spores from the last one because I had inoculated it and I waited and waited and waited and nothing ever happened. Well, I re-inoculated it with a good chunk more of what I had in my syringe, and that took. I checked yesterday, and it looked like I was getting some faint white cloudiness around the injection port. And I looked at it today, and it's unmistakably mycelium growing around the injection port. So I have ordered more spores. They're going to be here Monday. That's the Jedi Mindfuck mushrooms are going to be here Monday. But my golden teacher, I still am going to get another bag full out of that batch of spores. So I'm excited about that. I'm going to actually get a little more of my money's worth out of it. No, you don't air it out during the mycelial growth. You don't open the bag until you're ready to start harvest or ready to start flowering, if you want to say flowering, or, flushing, mushrooming, fruiting. I guess technically fruiting would be the proper word, but leave it sealed up, completely sealed. You don't want any oxygen getting in there at all during the mycelial growth part. So you'll give it a couple of weeks in darkness, and then you'll open it up and check it. If you find that you've got a nice big old lump of mycelium growing, you'll break that up and you'll mush it around. Do not cut open the bag. Just do your best to mush it around inside the vacuum sealed bag. Once you've spread that mycelium around through the substrate and fully mixed all the grain and manure together, and it's just one big mush, put it back in the darkness and let it sit for 2 more weeks. And after that, when you check it, it will be what they refer to as a cake. The whole thing will just be like a block of white mycelium. You shouldn't really be able to see much substrate or anything at all. It'll just be a big block of white. That's when you're ready to start fruiting it. That's when you cut the bag open and let some air in and start giving it light. And within a couple of weeks, you'll have your first batch of mushrooms. It's really easy. All right. That notification was just letting me know it's going to rain soon. Does not affect me in any way. Let's move on from this tank. It's already 9 o'clock, so we're going to actually, you know what? Let's do the filter change I had talked about. So every time I talk about filtration and, I have the hypothetical conversation about whether or not this tank can really be considered a filtered tank, because these filters are always just so ridiculously clogged up that the water just flows right back through the backflow and nothing really actually flows through the filters. And that's fine. This tank just functions like that. It's been like that for as long as I can remember. I changed the filters, and within 3 or 4 days, they're backed up and overflowing anyway. And so I just kind of stopped worrying about it. But it did occur to me that I can just get in here and do a simple filter change. So we're also going to need to take the biofilters and get them cleaned out in the sink, because these are going to be disgusting. Holy shit, I can hardly even pull them out of here. Oh, my God. I'm going to pull these out at the same time. Oh, man, that weighs like 40 pounds. All right, maybe 30. Maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit. Oh, that's so nasty. Let me go clean those biofilters out, and we'll get some new filter material put on there. Yeah, it smells like unburnt diesel fuel over here, too. All right, that's one. That was just trying to get the frame out of the filter. I haven't even started on the bio sponges yet. That's going to be pretty nasty too. Oh my God, these are just, they're almost solid gunk. Like you can't even tell there's the polyester is like, it doesn't even seem like polyester. It just seems like grunge and slime. Now, I know you can't see what I'm doing, but I'm just shaking the sponge filters out. You don't really want to scrub your sponge filters. Not the sponge filter, but the black biofilter part of the hang on the back. You don't want to wring that out and squeeze it out or wash it in really hot water. You want bacteria to stay on it. you just want to get the physical debris off of it so that water can flow through it freely, but you don't want to sterilize it during water change. Now, a lot of people will tell you not to do what I just did, even though I have well water, so that's but if you have city water, people say, oh, don't rinse your thing under in city water because it's got the chlorine in it. It's not enough chlorine, and it's not being exposed to it for long enough periods of time. Chlorine sterilizes your drinking water because it's in the pipe with bacteria for all the time. It's not just flowing over something quickly and then getting rinsed out. It's in there, and so the bacteria and stuff gets killed off. So just rinsing a sponge filter under your city water that has chlorine in it is not going to do. I mean, I'm not saying it won't kill any of the bacteria, but it's going to be absolutely negligible as far as what it's going to do to it. So if you do have city water, you don't have to get all, stressed out over whether or not you're going to rinse your filters in it. All right, so we put the filter in first, and then we put the bio sponge in afterwards. And then remember what I've said before, if you put the sponge filter in first and then you put the bio, it does that. It just squinches it up. So you put the filter in first, and then the sponge going in can't do anything except push it down and make it in there properly. So, all right, everybody, there's a first time for everything. You guys got to see a complete filter change on the 29. How do you like that? I even had some of you stick around staring at a filter for 5 minutes, so I should have probably given you something better to look at while I was doing that. All right, here is the 20, and this is the one with all the new fish in it. So I've had people recently telling me I should get new fish and I should, fix this tank up and, restock that tank, et cetera, et cetera. And I always try to explain to people that I just can't afford to do that. I know for some people they can say, oh, well, you spend all that money on mushrooms or you spent all that money on a new heater that you don't need or whatever. But it boils down to priorities. Like, I want mushrooms more than I want a new fish, and so I'm going to spend my money on the thing I want more. My priorities are not necessarily other people's, and so in my case, yes, I would spend money on mushrooms before I would spend money on shrimp or on fish or whatever. But this tank had finally gotten to the point where it was time to really spend some money on it and get it fixed back up, and so we're looking at a mere 20-gallon tank, and I put almost $70 worth of fish in there, and that's from the PetSmart or Petco. I put 7 of the Rasboras, and then I also put another 7 of the black neons. The Rasboras were $3.50 a piece. The neons were $3 a piece, and the betta fish was $13. $70, right there in that little tank just to put those few fish in it. So for all the people that say, oh, you should put a school of rainbow fish in there, you should buy this fish, and like, no, you should give me money and make a donation to the channel if you want me to spend all this money on all these fish. And then that's the other thing I was talking about with a friend of mine the other day about the way people recommend fish for me. They don't recommend fish that they think I would like. They recommend fish that they like. And so whether it's something I would like or not never crosses their mind. It's just a fish they want to see in my aquarium. And so they suggest, oh, you should get this kind of fish or you should get that. Like, they never take into consideration, would Dan like this kind of fish? Would that fit with the theme of his tank? Like, that never enters people's, equation. It's just, if it's a fish they like, then they recommend it to me. And I always find that weird. My very first fish, I didn't really have a very first fish. I set up a tank that was fully stocked, but I can talk about that. Oh, this tank has already got a bunch of shrimp in it. Yeah, I was thinking I need to get another tank for my fancy goldfish, but what I think I'm going to do is wait until I got a big sack of weed, and I'm going to take a couple of ounces down to another fish store I know where I know the owner, and I'm sure if I give him a couple of ounces of weed, he'll give me the tank at whatever his cost was, and so I'll be able to get a nice 70-gallon tank for about half of what it would retail. Yeah, the fish are definitely not cheap here anymore. You used to be able to go to the place, like the Petco or the PetSmart or someplace like that, and get neons for $1 and get guppies for $1.79. A decent guppy now is $3.99. If you get like a fancy looking guppy, you might pay $5 or $6 a piece for them. It's ridiculous. So again, I dropped almost $70 just stocking this little tank from a big chain store. It wasn't even like I went to my good expensive fish store and bought those fish. I went to the friggin' PetSmart and dropped $70 in a tank. It's easy. Hey, Chris. I don't need any more guppies. Not 500 anyway. Well, having your medical marijuana card is not the same. I grow my own, and so when I get excess, it tends to pile up, and I can use that as gifts for people and whatnot. Um, if you got a medical card, that just means you're going to have to go to the store and buy it at retail prices. And then, the owner of the fish store could just do that if he wanted weed. So it works in my case because I actually grow my own, and it's for all intents and purposes, you can call it free. It's obviously not. I have to pay electricity bills and plant food, and I got to make my substrate and all that kind of stuff. But it's virtually free compared to paying retail prices for weed. I think everybody should grow their own if they're a regular smoker. It's a fun hobby, and you get good weed. You don't get that shit you get from the stores. That stuff's garbage. Everybody talks about the stuff they get from the stores like it's good stuff. It's not. Well, Red Ed, I'm not saying, I'm not making any suggestions or anything. You can do whatever you want with this statement. But I've been growing for about 20 years now, and it's only been legal here since, I don't know, 2020 or 2019 or something like that. I think they finally made it legal. I never asked for anybody's permission to grow some plants in my basement. Yeah, it's definitely not free. But for the amount of weed you get for the money you spend on electricity and plant food and stuff, I'd literally have to do pennies on the eighth rather than $50 or whatever stupid price they charge at the store. um, well, if a weed store has got the best stuff you've ever smoked, then you should definitely grow your own because you will be in for a shock. I'll actually show you what I'm curing right now. I finally got it all dried and now it's sealed up in a jar. It's going to have to sit for a few weeks before it's fully ready. I actually separated it. I filled one jar that's going to sit, and I got another jar for stuff that I can grind up to make joints. They won't be great because it's not fully cured yet, but they'll be smokable. So this is my Super Silver Haze that I just harvested. And I've already smoked a couple of branches off of it, so you could add about another 20 grams or something. But this and this together is, what did it come to? 84 grams? I think this is 84 grams of weed that I got. And again, there was at least this much more that I've already smoked off of it, and that was just off of one plant. So I don't know how much you'd spend on 84 grams at the store, but I bet I didn't spend anywhere close to it. And my weed is good. Now, I don't know what you get and where you get it or who your store supplier is. Most states do it so that the supplier is within the state. They're not allowed to do, interstate shipping of it or anything. And so your suppliers come from your local state and everything. Maybe you've got great weed in your store. I have no idea. I know the shit I get at my store is really dry. It's harsh on the throat. God knows what kind of pesticides might have been. Like, I have no idea. It's not good weed. It doesn't have a nice smooth smoke. It doesn't have a nice good flavor to it. Again, it's just bone fucking dry. Good weed shouldn't be that dry. It should have a little bit of softness to it. It should have about 20% moisture. If it's properly cured, it should just have this nice, lovely aroma. When you smoke it, it should just be a nice, smooth smoke. You should get all the flavor out of it. And of course, it's potent as fuck. 310, how are you doing? Bob. Oh, that's really going to fuck me up with the old Bob Bravo 6310 thing on there. I wonder why they changed the handles like that. No, I'm definitely not getting more silver dollars. What plant is that in the left in the background? If you're asking about this one, that's an Anubias. This and then all of this is Crypt. That's Java Fern. And then when we get down here, there's more Java Fern and all that, chaos you see down there is Red Tiger Lotus. Stuff goes out of fucking control. All right, let me come around there and cop a squat for the evening. I wonder if I am building up a tolerance to these mushrooms, because I really don't feel like that tea I drank is doing a whole lot to me. And it was 1.1 grams of mushroom, although it has only been an hour and 10 minutes. I've got to give it another 20 or so for it to fully be on me. All right. Now that I've sat down, let me stand back up and get my light turned on. Get you up here in your big boy seat. All right, how's that? Everybody comfy? All right. Shirley. Yeah, I'm not worried about what they do, or, and again, even just because something's a regulation doesn't mean that's what they use on it. It just means that that's what the regulation says. If there's no enforcement of that regulation, then people are still going to use whatever the fuck they want. So, thank you, Bobby. I don't know if you've seen the whole thing or not. Meow. Like I said, I'll just stick to my own. Actually, the light has probably already gone out, but let's have a quick look at my weed. So I harvested the Super Silver Haze already, but I still have a Skittles in here. Yeah, the light's already gone out, so we'll use my artificial light. So that's the one. Any day now, this one's going to be ready to come down. And it's pretty chunky. That one just went in. That's a Hawaiian puff. And so this is getting really close. Really light, fluffy, loose buds compared to what I'm used to. Oh, God, that smells so good. So we're getting there. I'll get a few ounces off of that one. So legally, I'm only allowed to have 2 plants growing at any one time. And that means if I've got one that's flowering and I have another one that's a seedling, that's 2 plants. If I have 2 giant, towering trees covered in flowers, that's 2 plants. If I have 2 little seedlings, that's 2 plants. I get 2 plants, and that's it. It's got nothing to do with quantity or how much I produce. or anything like that. I can have 2 plants. So again, I've never really asked anybody's permission, and I don't know how they can enforce how many plants I'm growing in my tent, but legally I'm allowed to grow 2 plants here in Maryland. All right, let's see where I was. It's hanging a little to the left there as usual, Shirley. Well, that's the whole point of saying you'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow never arrives. It's always today. Tomorrow never gets here. That's why offering somebody jam tomorrow will keep them working the rest of their lives, because tomorrow never gets here. It's always going to be jam tomorrow. There's actually a pub or little, family bar and grill, whatever you want to call it. I just think of it as a pub on one of the roads I drive down, and they're one of those places that puts up the funny signs, to get people to come and have dinner there. And for a while, they had a sign up that said "free beer tomorrow," and I laughed every time I saw it. Yep, free beer tomorrow. You just every day you show up, the sign's still going to say "free beer tomorrow." It's not which side I sleep on; it's which side I dress on. Yeah, when I make the tea, I grind it up. I put the ground powder, like I grind it to powder, but just grind it up, break it up really small, do whatever. Put that in some lemon juice first. Let it sit in the lemon juice for a minute or two. Make sure it doesn't have to float in lemon juice, but make sure it's wet and completely covered with lemon juice. Let it sit for a few minutes. I actually made a batch last night and I did all this and it still started turning blue on me. So I drank it really quick and I still got a really good roll last night. So I probably didn't lose much of the potency, but it was starting to turn blue after a little while. I found that interesting. It's the only time it's ever done that when I've used lemon juice. So tonight when I made it, I used a little more lemon juice and I let it sit in the lemon juice a little longer before I added the water. And it was fine. It didn't turn blue at all. So you let it steep for 20, 30 minutes or whatever. And then I pour it through a coffee filter to get all the mushroom bits out. If you drink the mushroom bits, you can, but if you're going to do that, you may as well just eat them. The digestion of the mushrooms themselves is what makes your stomach all upset and everything. So if you soak them in water and then drink the ground up mushrooms, you still have to digest them. So you make your tea, you pour it through a coffee strainer. I always wring it out. I squeeze every last drop of juice I can get out of it, and then you throw the mushrooms away and you just drink the water. Drinking the mushrooms themselves would ruin the point of making tea. You make the tea so that you don't have to actually eat the mushroom. So coffee filter, throw the mushrooms away, drink the water. See what can of worms you no pun intended. See what can of worms you open there, Shirley? I should have gotten in here when I pulled these plants out yesterday. I've been looking at it all day because it's bugging me. I've either should have put that one back in better or I should have pulled that one out too. I really feel like I should have pulled this one out too. And it would have taken it right to where you can see the line of the wood right there. If we had pulled this one out, you'd actually be able to see the wood right here. And it would have kind of opened up this little end of the cave. Whereas now we have that and it looks like it's half uprooted. It'll sort itself out and grow back in, and anything that's exposed above the soil won't be so white after a while. Again, I know gardening and plants enough to know that's not any kind of big deal, but right now it's annoying me. It's bugging me. I might get in there and pull it out. Who knows? I'll have an extra crypt lying around. Culture worms. Okay. Yeah, if you wanted to flavor it with the bag of tea, you could do that. You could put some honey in it.
You can mix it with a glass of orange juice, or you can disguise the flavor however you want once you've made it into the tea. Um, Honestly, it's not terrible if you drink it. It doesn't have a lot of flavor. It tastes kind of mushroomy, kind of earthy. Um, and once it's down, and then you can chase it with a swig of coffee or put a mint in your mouth or something if you really don't like the aftertaste. But it's not that big a deal. Like if you make it into tea, it just sort of tastes a little mushroomy. um, I'd prefer not to taste the mushroominess, and so I put a little squirt of flavoring in there, and then it tastes like whatever I flavored it. um, so yeah, you can flavor it however you like. No, you can't really make weed tea per se. The chemicals in marijuana are not water soluble, whereas the chemicals that are the psychotropic chemicals in mushrooms are water soluble. And so if you soak the ground mushrooms in water, it pulls all those chemicals out. You get the psilocybin comes out of the mushrooms. With weed, you can soak it in water till the cows come home, and some stuff will soak out. The water will probably turn green, but you won't get any of the psychotropic stuff that's in weed. That's not water soluble. If you want to make weed tea, what you have to do is make the weed infusion into something like honey or milk or cream, something that's got fats or sugars in it. You can dissolve it into that, and then you can add that honey to your tea, or you can add that cream to your tea, or something, and you can drink it that way. But you can't use water to extract anything from marijuana that's valuable. It doesn't matter if you boil it, or like there's no way you can extract the good stuff from marijuana using water. That's why I use hexane and alcohol and all that kind of stuff. You got to use a non polar solvent. Yeah, exactly. You can make the THC into butter or cream or anything that's a fatty or oil based material. You can get the weed to go into. I think I would like butter coffee with anything. That sounds really good. All right. I guess I can feel those mushrooms coming on a little more. I'm glad I didn't do anything hasty, like eat a bunch more. Actually, I didn't. I'm not going to do that. Just I'm saving it for tomorrow. I'll show you what I got left. Unless I get, another mushroom out of the current bag, this is going to be the last of it. But I do have another bag that's growing, so in about a month I'll have more out of that. So you can see I cut the stem off, and it was about that long and big and thick at the end. So that's what I ate tonight was the stem. But the bulk of the mushroom is right there. So that'll be my trip for tomorrow night. And this is like like 1.6 or 1.7 grams. So that'll be a nice little chunk of mushroom. Can't wait to see what those new ones I get are going to do. Apparently, they're supposed to be really potent. And I don't know how you can tell like what a trip is going to be like or how it affects you. But when you look at mushrooms, it's the same as when you look at weed, and it'll say, oh, this one makes you hungry, or this one makes you sleepy, or this one makes you creative and talkative, or it has all these traits that it's supposed to have. Well, when you look at mushrooms, first of all, they almost all say it's the same sort of thing. Makes you very introspective, vivid visuals. Like, yeah, that's mushrooms. That's what they do. They all do that. But the ones I'm getting, the Jedi Mindfuck, they say that under high doses, I don't know how they define a high dose, but under high doses, not only will you get intense visuals, but apparently you see a lot of geometric shapes and patterns along with a lot of colors. So that sounds pretty cool for next spring if I want to do like a solid trip out in the yard one afternoon, seeing like weird squares and triangles and lines and shit all over the place. I think that'd be pretty neat. So the Jedi Mindfuck is supposed to be like deeply introspective with intense visuals and all this other stuff. So it should be interesting to see how they compare to the ones I've been eating and see if I can tell any kind of difference in the effect. Communism has always seemed more appealing. I've been a communist for, well, I don't really consider myself a communist. I genuinely think of myself as just a leftist in general, but if you call me a socialist or a communist or whatever, I'm okay with that. I've been there for about 25 years now. Right. Let's see how many people I have left after that. Do I have anything else I wanted to talk about tonight? I can't think of anything. I wanted to talk about my weed, the mushrooms. Here, I probably shouldn't open this up too much because it's supposed to sit in the darkness. I don't know if you're still there or not, Anna. But just opening it for a brief moment and exposing it to light, I don't think is going to be that big a deal. I'm not going to turn the bright light on, so you're going to have to just look at it. If I can get the stupid tape off. So the first injection didn't take. I don't know if I didn't put enough spores in or what, but if you look at it now, you see all the white growing around the... Look at all that. That's all mycelium. So this bag is definitely going to take. And I still have spores left in the syringe. I put them in my refrigerator, and hopefully if there's any alive in there, I might even get a third bag out of them. That would be awesome. And if I average the same amount as I got off the first bag, about 3 ounces of dried mushroom, that'll be like 9 ounces of mushrooms total. If I get a fourth bag, let's say 12 ounces of mushrooms for less than $100. That's pretty fucking good. And then, of course, yeah, that would be total. Well, it would be a little more than that because I would have to buy the additional bags, and the bags are about $20 a piece. So if I bought 4 more bags, we'd be looking at maybe $160 for 4 ounces of mushrooms or 12 ounces of mushrooms. That's a pretty good deal. Oh, that would be awesome, Chris. I don't see why anybody would think that's not a good idea. Build your business up enough to get like a fucking $6 million buyout from, or $100 million buy or whatever from PetSmart, and see ya. Go buy your own island somewhere. Make sure it's an appropriate island. It's not mold, it's fungus. I inoculated it on the 11th, was my second inoculation. So it's been a while. I think I kept those spores. The first one, I just did a little tiny injection. I waited 2 weeks, and when I opened it up, there was a plug of mycelium in there, like the size of a baseball, after 2 weeks. So I may not have, injected it with a lot of spores. Maybe that first injection, there was a bunch of spores and they grew like crazy. This may have had one lonely spore that somehow survived or something. And because it's been, well over a week now, and I'm only just starting to see the growth. So we'll give it another week and see if it doesn't really take off once it gets going. This is also a different brand of bag than the original one. It looks exactly the same. I'm assuming it's the same kind of barley or whatever's in there, but it is a different brand bag. So maybe it's not going to grow the same as the other one did. Yeah, that's what I said, Chris. The dispensary near me, I can go down to DC and go to a mushroom dispensary, but it's $50 an eighth. And at $50 an eighth, 3 ounces is $1,200 worth of fucking mushrooms or whatever it came out to be. So for about $150, I'm going to get $1,200 to $1,500 worth of mushrooms. Again, I'm not selling them. I'm just looking at it in a value sense. It's not for profit. It's just I'm getting a huge amount of mushrooms for very little amount of money. It's just going to be awesome. Already has been awesome. I got more than my money's worth out of the first batch. Hey, John, how are you this evening? Oh, I keep them. Junkin Island. Somebody can stop signing me if they want. Yes, I don't even use the term nuisance snails because I don't see them as a nuisance at all. I see them as an active part of my ecosystem. If you've got snails running rampant in your tank and you're having an explosion of snails, that's poor tank maintenance. You shouldn't have that many snails in your tank unless you're overfeeding it or there's a lot of dead plant material lying around. There has to be a lot of food for the snails to breed like that. If your tank is balanced, you'll have snails in it, but they'll be a natural, like, I mean, this tank's full of snails, but you really got to look for them to actually find them. I don't have snails all over the glass, and so they're to me just a normal, natural part of an aquatic environment. Again, my tanks and my sort of philosophy on fish keeping is very geared towards naturalistic, not necessarily natural. I'm not one of those people that says I'm mimicking nature. I'm giving a rough approximation of what nature looks like, and I'm trying to simulate what nature does as best I can under these circumstances. But what nature looks like and what nature does involves snails. Every time I'm out at the water somewhere, I see snails. They eat the algae, they feed the fish because some of the fish will eat the snails. It's just all part of the ecosystem of the tank. And they're cleaners. They just help keep the tank clean. They eat algae and they eat dead material. They eat excess dead plant material. So why everybody thinks of them as a nuisance and they don't want them in their tank and they act like their tank's infected with something when it's got some snails in it. I've never understood that. I really haven't. So keep your snails, enjoy the hell out of them. And if anybody ever calls them nuisance snails, you can set them straight and tell them they are not. Thank you, Zini. Thank you, Shirley. Well, originally, Anna, snail explocalypse. Originally, I had thought about, like with my weed, when I plant a seed, I'll make cuttings of that plant. So I'll get multiple plants off of one seed and I really get my value out of that seed. In reality, since seeds cost about $10 a piece and you get ounces of weed off of it, it's a good value. But if you get 5 plants off of it, that's a great value for that $10 seed. And so I was thinking along those same lines with the mushrooms that I could like let one mushroom stay on there long enough to go to spore, and then I could collect the spores and I could do tubs and I could make my own substrate. But after seeing what I got, how easy it was to do it and what the cost was, I'm not going to fuck with any of that. When I need new mushrooms, I'm going to buy a thing of spores. You can get a thing of spores for about $20. If you buy 4 or 5 bags at a time from Amazon, you can get them for $20 a piece. I'm just going to do that. I'm not even worried about how to grow them or, keep them as spores or anything. I'm just going to buy bags and buy the syringes. And of course, with the syringes, you can also mix it up. You get different varieties and stuff. All right, Dave, thanks for hanging out. I'm not sure what a Helena's is. Is that a kind of snail? Yeah, my loaches. You want to get rid of your snails, other than putting less food in the tank. You could also put some loaches in the tank. They're not the snail destroyers that everybody talks about them as being, but given time, there won't be any snails left in your tank. You can't keep snails and loaches in the same tank. Again, it's not like if you've got 1,000 snails in your tank, they're just going to go around eating them until they're sick. But they'll eat quite a few of them, and they'll do that every day. And before you know it, you won't have any snails left in your tank if you get some loaches in there. And they're awesome fish. I'm a big fan of my loaches. In fact, I often I do have excess snails in my shrimp tank. You can see a lot of snails in there on the glass and whatnot. This is mainly because I feed the shit out of this tank in an attempt to breed the shrimp. I want the shrimp to have tons of food, and I also don't mind the snails breeding in here because I always take the larger ones out and I throw them in one of my tanks that has loaches in it, and that'll be loach food at some point. I also throw them in my 55 all the time. I know a lot of that white stuff on the bottom looks like the crushed coral that I put in there, and a lot of it is. But if you look, especially in this back corner, this one here, that's a dead snail shell. I drop handfuls of ram's horns in here, and the loaches just destroy them. They make short work of them. And then this is the other tank I've got loaches in, so I never mind throwing my excess snails in that tank either. But my other tanks that have snails in them, you can see there's a snail sitting right next to a shrimp right there. I don't know how well you can see the snail and the shrimp. Oh, that's two shrimp. I didn't even see that second shrimp. So there's two little shrimp right there next to a snail. Let's see. Here's another snail right here. I can see another snail in the back glass. Here's another one here. Yeah, if we look around enough, you can see another one on that rock right there. There's one on the bottom. So again, I got snails in my tanks, and we could do this with any one of my tanks. They're just not excessive. They're not all over the place, except for that one, which I feed the crap out of for reasons I just explained, and this one that I feed the crap out of for the exact same reasons. But you can see this one. This has snails all over the glass, and down here it's got snails all over the bottom. But I put a lot of food in this tank so that I can grow excess shrimp and snails, because again, I do use the snails as food. But that's how I get excess snails, by overfeeding. Are you all dizzy yet? I was looking at the monitor while I did that, and it was definitely a spin around the room. All right, let me have some of my iced tea this time. Depends on the loach arc. The smallest of the loaches, like the ones I have, the Angelicus and the skunk loach are probably the smallest, and they still get a good 4 inches. They're active. They need to be in a group. So I don't think I would put them in anything smaller than my 29. I have those striated Bodia in there, which are a little bigger than the Angelicus. The striatids are maybe like 5 inches. But they hide a lot. They live down in the rocks. I got a lot of rocks and stuff and caves for them to get into. They've been in there their whole lives, and they don't seem like they're cramped, or it's never seemed problematic for them being in there. And that's a 29. I don't think I would do it in a 20, and I don't think there's anything between a 20 and a 29. So if you get really small loaches, a 29, I would say, would probably be the smallest tank I would think about putting them in. And then, as Shirley said, some loaches get quite large. My red tail loach is about 8 inches. Clown loaches can get to be 10 or 12 inches. There's a lot of loaches out there that can do 8 or 9. So it would depend on the loach, but the smallest loach, smallest tank, I'm going to say 29. All right, Monk, thanks for hanging out. Maybe I'll see you on Sunday if you're still awake. Yeah, I think a 20 would be a little too small. Well, don't rent one for a week. Go to, well, you'd still have to get a group, because I think if you just put one in your tank, it would just be forlorn and lay on the bottom and it wouldn't do much. But you could go to PetSmart, buy 3 or 4 of them, put them in your tank, leave them in there for 8 or 10 days, collect them out, and then take them back to the store and return them. I've done that before, not for the purposes of using the fish and then taking it back, but I've bought fish before, not liked them, and then caught them out of the tank and returned them to the store still alive. They thought it was odd. Nobody ever really turned live fish before. It was usually the dead ones they brought back, but they put them right back in the tank, which I did think was interesting, because they had no idea what I'd done with them, and they just put them right back in the tank. So, you know, the most egregious thing I ever returned fish for is I bought some Green Lantern barbs. No, I bought some Green Lantern platies. That's what it was. I bought Green Lantern platies. And in the store, they looked amazing, because, the kind of lighting they use in the stores is meant to highlight certain colors and whatnot. And so in the store, they looked great. You really just, that green just popped. And I brought them home and I put them in my tank, and I watched them for a couple days, figure maybe the color will come back. And it wasn't the same. Like, you could tell they were green, and if they moved the right way, you got a little glint of green or whatever, but they weren't that green that I saw in the tank. And I was like, I don't want this. I wanted those green fish. I don't want these, fish that look like this. And so I caught them all and took them back, and I basically returned them for not being green enough. Fucking fish. Yeah, exactly, Art. Rent goats for the afternoon to come out and clear the brush out of your lot. You could maybe you could start a service. Just have a tank full of loaches that you can take around to people's aquariums, rent them out for a week. It's an idea. I've got another new Doctor Who coming out, but I don't think it's till tomorrow. It just said it premieres, but it doesn't say when the premiere is supposed to be. So I think it's going to be tomorrow. So my mushroom for tomorrow night will be from a new Doctor Who. All right. What else can we talk about? Do I have any stories I can drag up? Anybody want to hear any stories? Can't think of any stories. Stories don't work like that. It's hard for me to just pop one out of my head and just tell a story of something I did. It's got to be related to something, or I got to be reminded of it. I did actually pick up a new fan yesterday, so that's the first new fan I've picked up in a long damn time. But I also don't really advertise or do a whole lot with it anymore anyway. So, yeah, I did get I now have 14 fans. I was up to like 19, but like I said, they're just kind of dropping off as time goes on, because I'm not real I don't promote it a lot anymore. I just kind of let it roll the way it is. I still post videos and stuff. I just don't really do a lot of the advertising and all that shit. There's like an extra $150 a month coming in. No, we don't decorate for any of the holidays. We do enjoy the holiday season, because that's when the good smelly good candles come out. We love the spruce and pine forest and all that kind of stuff. I know you can get it year round, but it's just not the same. We wait until we see like the Christmas candles come out, and we do burn those in the house during the season, but that's only because we like the smell. It's got nothing to do with the holiday. We don't really have room. We used to put a Christmas tree up in the living room, but it takes up too much space. And like the way we've got the TV and the couch and everything set up now is completely different. And there's nowhere to really put it that you wouldn't either be blocking a seat or blocking the TV or blocking the door. So we have a fairly nice fake Christmas tree we bought on clearance one year just so we'd have one. But I haven't drug it out. I think last year I took it upstairs in case my wife wanted to put it up. I never mess with it because I don't care. And she never did anything with it. And finally, about a week after Christmas, I just brought the tree back down and stuck it back on the shelf. So that's the closest we've come. I did take the tree upstairs. We didn't get it out of the box, though. And then that's, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 years since we've put up a Christmas tree, maybe even longer than that. 10 years. But she did get an awesome Christmas ornament for a coworker that was retiring. She's a Doctor Who fan. This woman must be awesome. No wonder she's friends with my wife. She's not only a Doctor Who fan, but she is also a Studio Ghibli fan. And so my wife got her a little 4.5-inch Christmas ornament. It's a little glass TARDIS. It's really nice. So she got a little TARDIS Christmas ornament. And my wife got her Studio Ghibli Howl's Moving Castle cookie cutters, and she got her a cookie sheet and some dough and all that kind of stuff to go with the cookie cutters. But Howl's Moving Castle is her favorite. My wife was going to get her No Face, and I said this the other night. It's weird. I named my fish No Face on the same day that she told me that she was trying to buy a No Face cookie cutter. Completely unrelated. I hadn't spoken to her about it or anything. Hang on, I got to wipe the tip of my vape pen off here. Yeah, you didn't know what I was going to say there, did you? When I refilled it earlier, I dribbled some on the outside of it. I forgot to wipe it off. Now I got it all over my fingers. My fingers are going to smell like a circus clown vomit. Tutti Frutti is probably the closest I could come up with if I had to describe a flavor of this. It's not like I put a flavor in it and then when it's getting low, I pop the pot off and throw it away and put a fresh one on. When it's getting low, I top it off with something, and I mix my 30 mil with my 55, so it's a little bit stronger. And so there's strawberry, watermelon, banana cream, French vanilla, cotton candy, and one other flavor that I can't think of right now, but that's what this tastes like. If you can imagine what all that tastes like together, that's what this tastes like. And then super concentrated sugar because it's so sickeningly sweet. It's disgusting. But they don't make a vape stuff that's not sickeningly sweet. I've looked and you just can't find it. The only thing I could get that wouldn't be super sweet would be a mint or menthol like, and I don't like menthol. So it's clown circus barf here. Woo. But it gets the job done. If you made one, Ark, I'd hang it up in here somewhere. I'd hang it up. I got little trinkets and doodads hanging all over the place, so I would definitely add to my collection a little trinkets and doodads. I've already got my 3D printed. I got my Powerpuff Girls down here. I got my Yoda, my toy trucks. I got my fish Christmas ornament. This one's really cool. It's actually articulated. I got my glass shrimp Christmas ornament. Somewhere up here, I got a puffer. I got a puffer fish glass ornament. This actually has blue sparkles inside. You can shake it around. I got Luke and Yoda, and then, of course, I got the Link figurines you made for me. So, yeah, if you want to send me a little doodad trinket thing to hang around, I'll hang that up somewhere. I'm not even going to take you on a tour of all my kitchen cabinets that have all kinds of trinkets and doodads hanging off of them, little mementos and whatnot. So I'm always down for that kind of stuff. You've never seen my Powerpuff Girls? Those are keychains. And then the The Star Wars, that's been in here forever. The little baby Luke with the baby Yoda on his back. I've had that in here like almost as long as I've had a fish room. But the Link figurines actually came 3D printed from art and painted, I might say. UV resin, that's awesome. I'm assuming when you say the UV resin, the stuff that like hardens almost immediately, like the way the dentists put the UV light on it and then bang, you got a tooth in your mouth. So that was part of this Xeniverse. Oh, that's cool. That's awesome. Instant done. I would imagine. Well, I don't know enough about 3D printing to have an opinion, but I would think that would make it zero room for error. But I would imagine in 3D printing, there's no room for error. If it comes out wrong, it's wrong, regardless of whether you're using the quick dry stuff or not. Have you ever seen one of those? It's like a demonstration of that UV gel. They squeeze it out of a tube like toothpaste. And as they're squeezing it, they're making it into like a wavy sort of line of toothpaste. And they're shining a UV light on it sort of as they go up. And then they just let go of the tube and it's just standing on top of this wavy line of hard plastic almost instantly from just shining the UV light on it. I'm assuming it's something similar to that. Well, I'm imagining your Xeniverse is like the Spider-Verse, where you have a bunch of alternative views all blending your memories together and getting what happened and what timeline confused and all that stuff. So I didn't know if we were on the correct timeline for you to remember all that stuff from before. That's what I mean when I say the Xeniverse. All right, I'm going to put this nicotine down before I fucking fall down. Can't just keep puffing on that. But you know what I can keep puffing on? I can puff on my THC stuff till the cows come home. Where did I put it? Oh, I already brought it in here. I just didn't bring it down to my seat and left it sitting up here somewhere. Or did I? Where the fuck is it? Oh, there it is. It's hiding behind my fish food. That's my THC vape stuff. I got it in an actual real mod. Nicotine puts a fucking wallop on my brain. It only lasts for a few minutes, but goddamn. Oh, and molds. I got you. That makes sense. Well, see, Zini, you're even better than Spider-Man. You can blend memories and merge brains and stuff. That's awesome. Oh, wow, it's almost 10 o'clock already. I guess we'll start winding down unless anybody's got anything specific they want to talk about or questions they have. I've covered everything I wanted to go over tonight. Talked about my heater. Hopefully Tim was listening and heard what I had to say. Maybe that'll make you rethink your opinion of whether you want to buy that. Again, for the price, getting a few years out of it, I kind of wish it had lasted longer. And I probably could still fix it. I'm just not a fix-it guy. If you're handy with like taking stuff apart and tinkering with it, it's probably not a big deal. I just don't like doing that shit. I have to. It's just easier for me to just buy a new one. I'll just fucking throw that one away. I tried to fix it. Hey, Tim, how are you? Do I still keep native fish? Not really. I've got a couple of minnows and a couple of gambusias swimming around in my 40, and I still have a last couple of minnows swimming around in the 125 down here that haven't jumped out yet. They will sooner or later, I'm sure. It's where all the rest of them went. But other than that, not really. I don't really go out catching them or trying to bring them home. I did on a sort of a whim last year. I caught a bunch of minnows and brought them home. and that's the last of the native fish I'm probably going to keep. It's not out of the question in the future if I do have a tank that something goes catastrophically wrong and all the fish in it die at once. It's not impossible to say I might not set it up as a native tank, or put a sunfish in it or something like that, but I don't plan on doing that, and I don't currently have any tanks like that set up. All right, let's at least get up into first position. I feel like I need to stand up for a little while. My back's starting to hurt. I spend way too much time sitting down. Start turning some lights out, get some disco light going on. And this Friday night on the party. All right, 10 o'clock is normally when I'm outening the lights here in the fish tank. Anyway, so let's start doing that. So start winding down. Last thoughts, comments, questions. And again, I'm up for hanging out for however long. It doesn't matter to me. It just seems like everybody's kind of done for the night. And you all know me. I'd rather just go do something else than sit here and just try to think of shit to say when nobody else seems to be interested or whatever. So we'll just start winding down. Xenia is always welcome to talk as much as he likes on my live streams. He knows that. Anybody have any Doctor Who questions? How do hot dogs get their names? I do not know. I could direct you to a video that would tell you how they got their name, though. All right, I'll see what the computer has to say. Computer, how did hot dogs get their name?
Hot dog is named after dog, Vienna, and Greece.
All right, I don't really understand that answer, but hot dog is named after dog, Vienna, Greece. Yep, there you go. Look up Ryan George. Look up a Ryan George video called How Meats Got Their Names, and you'll get your answer to how hot dogs got named. And I'll give you a hint. It was named by the creepy dude. Creepy pervy guy. I think most people hate AI so much. There's some people that like it, but most people think it's fucking horrible and it's ruining our world and destroying our environment and making our electricity cost a lot more, and all that kind of stuff, so that you can get a wrong answer when you Google it. Yay, progress. Blowing the clouds tonight. You like the way I emerged from the mist like a god at the first dawn? Wow, I almost went over backwards and took one step too far backwards. I almost kept going backwards right into the pond. One of these nights, you guys are going to get to see the big splash. Sooner or later, I'm going to end up in that fucking pond. Yeah, Adult Swim. That's awesome. Adult Splash. All right, everybody. Any last minute thoughts? We're almost at the 2-hour mark. We got 10 seconds left. So I will give you your
last call. Actually, let me pull a few things out of here. I'll clean up a couple of things while I give you your last minute. And I think we can be done with puffing on that too, or I'm going to start coughing. Brain-wise, I can puff on that all day. Lung-wise, I cannot. It's with the nicotine, it's the brain I got to slow. I can keep puffing, but my brain needs a break on the nicotine. I can only do so much of that. Zini is paraphrasing Terry Pratchett. Yeah, I'll save that for another live stream there, Art. One of Terry Pratchett's books, he talks about hope is the greatest of all treasures. Yeah, that's Zini and I have a thing with that. That's why he's saying that. The whole point, though, I'll tell you the story, Zini, while you're listening, so you know. I know you're never going to read the book, but the book opens with a guy in a prison cell, and he's working on escaping by using a spoon to wear away the mortar around the blocks. You know, this is like an old school big stone prison cell, and he's month after month he's working away at this, and you know he's worn through like 3 spoons, or no, he's almost completely worn through the spoon that he's got. He's been working on it with his 1 spoon, and he finally got the block out of the way. And when he pulled the block out of the way, what he found was a fresh spoon with a note saying congratulations, and then there was another brand new, freshly made solid block wall in front of him. And right when he's discovering this, he hears somebody clapping behind him, turns around, and it's the prison warden and a bunch of the jailers, and they're all clapping, and they had all taken bets on whether he was going to stick with it or not. And he was like, I really appreciate, I really admired the way you were carrying all those spoonfuls of dirt out, and dropping them in the yard every day. And, they didn't think you were going to stick with it, but I said you would. And so he points out, like, don't you think this is kind of cruel? If you knew I was doing this, like, you just let me keep doing this. And he's like, oh, no. And this is where the patrician of the town, the big ruler of the town, is a monster, basically. He's a psychopath. And he said, no, he's supposed to do that because the patrician says that you have to give the prisoners hope. Blah, blah, blah. He just talks about them not getting depressed. And as long as they've got some hope, it keeps them active, and, so on and so forth. And he says that hope is the greatest of all treasures. And the guy in prison, more or less says, don't you think it's kind of cruel to allow me to have this hope without the chance of escape? He's like, no, we're not giving you the chance of escape. We're giving you hope. And, like, that's the whole point of it, is hope doesn't actually accomplish anything. You can hope all you want. Terry Pratchett refers to prayer as hoping out loud. Or Douglas Adams refers to prayer as hope with a good beat to it. So that's the whole point. And every time I say that to you, Zini, that hope is the greatest of all treasures, I'm being sarcastic when I say that. I'm not saying that like I'm trying to cheer you up. Like just have hope, buddy. You'll just stick in there. Like I'm saying that sarcastically. It's meant to be sarcastic. The promise of freedom is ridiculous, but you can have the promise of hope while you're in prison. The only true wisdom is knowing you know nothing. That is true. I hope so too, Zini. Because as you know, it's the greatest of all treasures. You've heard me talk about Terry Pratchett forever. He's a brilliant writer. His satire is amazing. The whole Discworld is modeled around our world. It's a satirical look at our society and our, each book covers a certain type of thing. Like the Hogfather book is a book about like Christmas and the holidays and beliefs and gods and where they come from. The story I was just telling you about is called Going Postal,
and it's about how the first sort of post office was developed and this sort of satirical look at a modern world versus, again, it's brilliant writing. If you like satire, you should definitely read Terry Pratchett and read his Discworld series. There's like 43 or 44 books in the Discworld series. He's amazing. He really is. He's my favorite author of all time. Speaking of authors, I completely forgot. I've started a new book. Well, it's not a new book. It's actually written in the 1600s or 1700s. Computer, when was Gulliver's Travels written?
Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift was published in 1726.
Yeah, 1726. So it's weird. I was thinking about Gulliver's Travels a while ago and just remembering what a fantastic book it is. And I'd gotten to thinking about it for a while. And then I watched one of my old ass Doctor Who from the 60s, still in black and white. And one of the characters in there was Gulliver. And because he was a character of fiction, he couldn't say any of his own thoughts. He could only, like Bumblebee and the Transformers can only say stuff that comes across a radio and edits it to say the things he wants to get across. That's the way Gulliver was in the story. The only responses he could give was actual text from the book. And so throughout the story, I just kept getting these lines from the book and the way they were written. I was just like, oh, that's just so good. I got to read that again. So my wife put an order into the library for me. It came in the other day. I picked it up, and I've already finished chapter 1. So later tonight when I get upstairs, I'll pick it up again. I'll read chapter 2 tonight or maybe tomorrow night. Depends on how late I get to bed tonight. But Gulliver's Travels is what I'm reading right now. So I'm sure I'll be talking about that as time goes on. The story hasn't really started yet, so I got nothing to really talk about. Robert, how are you? Yeah, it's a fantastic book. Well, the reason you read Shakespeare in high school and the reason, it's to learn about literature and about how to do it and, all that kind of stuff. Fucking Shakespeare did a pentamic diameter or dynameter or whatever the fuck that word is, where everything was done in, 5 syllables at a time. And so there's a reason you learn. If you just want to read an enjoyable book, Gulliver's Travels is a fucking fantastic book. It's an awesome story. And again, speaking of satire, it's not really, I don't know if I'd call it satire, but during Gulliver's Travels, he goes to 4 different lands, and each one of the lands is representative of one aspect of our society. One land he might focus on how agriculture and the hierarchy and everything works within an agrarian society. Another one might be a royal society. I do remember that he went to one place where scientists ruled everything, and because they use science to rule everything, it's a critique of the way a society would function if the scientists ruled everything. And it's got his own personal viewpoints on how he feels about those kinds of things and whatnot. But it's a fantastic story. If you've never read Gulliver's Travels before, I would definitely recommend that one too. All right, you got me talking for a little longer. Yeah, Mice and Men, that's a tough one. The ending of Mice and Men is so fucking tragic. I get choked up even thinking about it, so I'm not even going to talk about Mice and Men. Another good one. Yeah, exactly. They're not prioritized. I mean, there's a ton of good books you could read out there. I'll give you a perfect example. If you're studying literature, while I may say that Lord of the Rings is a fantastic book and I love the story and everything, it is in a way, but literarily it's not. It's easy to read. It's kind of a children's book, but not really. There's nothing to really learn from it. I mean, if you want to be an author and you're taking a creative writing class, that might be a good story to study and dissect and whatnot. But if you're in an English lit class, the book they read is The Once and Future King. And I've read The Once and Future King, and it's amazing. It's a fantastic book. It's a fantastic story. It's the King Arthur story, the Arthurian legend. However, it is a difficult read. Like, you have to think when you're reading that. And there's a reason that's the one they teach you when you're doing English lit, because it's the sentence structure and how the language is used to convey the message. And like, that's what you're learning about because of the book. I've read Once and Future King. I'll probably never read it again. It was a difficult read. It was a great story. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't a fun book to read. Lord of the Rings is just a fun book. It's a good adventure book. It's challenging enough that it's good brain food, but it's not something anybody's ever going to study in an English lit class, So there's a difference between reading one kind of book versus one that you actually enjoy. I'm still a little the Mice and Men and stuff. I'm not really sure why. Maybe that's like ninth grade to sort of it's because they're really easy reader books. I mean, Of Mice and Men could be a 12-year-old could read that with no issue whatsoever. So maybe that's why those are the ones you first get. They're nice sort of introduction into English literature and that sort of thing. They're classic novels by classic writers. And on that note, if you've never read The Grapes of Wrath, that's another one by Steinbeck that's, again, tragic, but The Grapes of Wrath is a really good book, too. And if you don't come away from The Grapes of Wrath hating capitalism, I don't know what's going to change your mind, but read Grapes of Wrath and you'll get a pretty concise look at, what the world under capitalism is like. Been there and done that. We already know. All right. Once again, you guys are getting my unfiltered mushroom brain when I start giving you my opinions about stuff. Isaac Asimov, The Foundation. I've never been a big Isaac Asimov fan. I've never read any of his stuff. I might check it out. I don't know. I don't know what you mean by a difficult read. But with Once and Future King, it's one of those, it's like reading Shakespeare. You have to reread the sentence twice to what the fuck did he just say? Oh, okay, that's what he means. It uses all kind of illusion and not illusion, allusion. It's a challenging read, Once and Future King. I tried reading the Iliad one time. I think I made it a page into it and I was just like, fuck this. Another one I tried reading was Don Quixote. I got a couple chapters into Don Quixote, but again, it was just a really challenging read. I wasn't enjoying the story that much. It felt like one of those books that I'd be able to say, oh yeah, I read Don Quixote, and I could just sound like I'm sophisticated because I've read these fancy books. I wasn't enjoying it, so I stopped reading it. There's one other book I started reading, Chaucer. Everybody talks about Chaucer being one of the great authors, and I can totally understand why Chaucer is one of the great authors. I made it about halfway through the first page of Chaucer and said, no, this is not for me. I'm not going to try to read Chaucer. That one was tough. P.G. Wodehouse, that's more my style. I can read Wodehouse till the fucking cows come home. He's amazing. Chaucer was that was a lot. I couldn't do the Chaucer. Oh yeah, see, that's not what I'm talking about. I like books like that, Art, where you got to think, like even a simple Doctor Who episode. If you leave for 5 minutes and come back, if you won't really know what's going on anymore. They pack a lot of information into those plots. You really have to pay attention to what's going on. Even little subtle background things or whatever come up as key plot points later. So I like that. I like the world building. You could say the same thing with the Tolkien and his massive amount of world building through 1,300 pages or whatever it is. I mean, like the wording itself, the actual sentence structure of the way it's written. He's not telling a complicated story necessarily. It's just like the way Shakespeare does poetry. Like he's saying something very simple, but he's saying it in very elaborate words and a very specific structure. And you got to really read Shakespeare to understand what he's saying. It's not that the thing he's saying is complicated. it's how he's saying it that makes it so, you know, you like, what the fuck is he saying? So the Asimov stuff, that sounds right up my alley. I like the world building and I like having to pay attention. You know, when I read a book, I don't set it down for months at a time. I just kind of read through it so I can pick it up where I left off and I remember where we are in the story. You know, I can do that. I'm great at that. The way it's written is what crushes me. You know, again, try reading Chaucer or try reading the Iliad or something. It's just like, oh, I can't, I don't know what the fuck he's saying. Remember when everybody would I remember when everybody would get pissed at people for having a pager, and then it was a cell phone, then it was a BlackBerry. Let's see. Oh yeah, it's definitely the precision of words. And it's not even the precision, it's the use of words. It's old words that are you know, had a different meaning back then, or the way they're used in the sentence would change. You know, again, just if you read it, you'll see what I mean. If you're a reader, if you like reading books, I absolutely recommend reading The Once a Future King. It's a great book. It's just a challenging book. It's not written in modern vernacular. It's not written like the kind of narrative we're used to reading in a novel. It's written like poetry from back in the day. I don't even know when that was written. Computer, when was Once and Future King written?
Once and Future King was published in 1958.
1958. Oh, wow. I thought that was an old ass book, but it's not. Well, good for him then. Fucking Philistines. Yes, exactly. Art. They're painting a rich tapestry using the English language. Did I put all my vape devices in the other room? I got to standing around talking long enough that I'm ready for some more puffing. I'll bring my nicotine back in this time. That'll make my head spin for me. It'll spin right round like a record right round. They don't have that capacity yet. Has anybody looked into the that Neo robot, AI robot I was talking about? And what a fucking scam, ridiculous dystopian hellscape nightmare that is. Like, there's a lot of things that I'm fully aware of. Like, again, you guys don't have to tell me about capitalism. But that is just, I mean, we're so far into late stage capitalism at this point. It's just absolutely undeniable. But when I see that and I see the dystopian nightmare of like paying all that money for a robot worker, when it's not like, if it was a real robot, like a Roomba that was going to like just be a robot, fine. I'll use a toaster or a microwave oven. I don't care about using a machine. This isn't a machine. You're using a person. Like, you're literally just like using some person that's in some little booth somewhere, going through the motions of pretending to wash your dishes while it looks through camera eyes on the robot monstrosity thing that's in your kitchen. That's a dystopian fucking nightmare. Just hire a goddamn dishwasher, hire a maid, you know, hire somebody to come in and do the job. Don't do this fucking like have some worker in a call center in Bangladesh doing your dishes for you. That is so fucked up. That one just fucking threw me when I found out how that thing worked. They don't understand the lines between the lines of word, like the lines on the paper. Is that what you're saying? Like lined paper, they don't understand? I don't really, I don't know what to say about that. Oh, the what people say in between the lines. Yeah, me and Zini were talking about that too. Yeah, I got you. But the conversation we were having about reading between the lines is either sometimes there's nothing there to read, and people with an overactive imagination, read too much in between the lines, or they misread what's between the lines. And so reading between the lines is an art you have to hone over years, believe me. And when you're somebody with an ADHD brain like mine, uh, low emotional intelligence, I have a difficult time picking up facial cues, and like I'll just keep plowing on with whatever I'm talking about, even though everybody in the room is making it 100% clear they don't want to talk about this. I just keep on going because I'm oblivious. So yeah, it's a skill. That robot sounds like a dystopian nightmare horror movie to me. So speaking of robot, maybe I'll watch Killer Robot, my Doctor Who episode that I have only watched once. It's a good one though. I watched it the other night when I was tripping. I didn't pay a lot of attention to it. I was kind of saving it for later when I could focus on it a little more. Yeah, well, that makes a big difference. I remember watching. Can't remember what it was now, but somebody was in India and doing an interview with some craftsman or something like that, and he asked them, "Can I see, what you did over there?" He asked if he could see something or look at something, and the Indian guy said something in Indian that he didn't understand, but he shook his head when he said it, and the guy kind of looked at the camera like, oh, all right, I don't know what the big deal is. I don't know why we can't see that. And he asked him again. He's like, would it be okay if we saw that? And the guy said whatever he said again and shook his head. And eventually they figured out that in India, shaking your head means yes. Whereas, obviously we're accustomed to a nod meaning yes and a shake meaning no. And just culturally, that was different over there. And the shake of the head, he was basically saying, "Yeah, sure, of course you can go see it." But they saw that shake of the head as him saying, "No, you can't go see that." So again, it's communication barriers fall in all sorts of categories, and visual, body language is certainly one of them. When it comes to subtle social cues and social context and stuff like that, you're really lost when you've got somebody that's not familiar with the culture or didn't grow up in it anyway. So, all right, everybody, it is almost 10:30, and I am going to start winding down. So we'll be back Sunday night. Unfortunately, I will not have any mushrooms by Sunday night because that last cap I've got, I'm planning on eating it tomorrow. It depends on what kind of mood I'm in. Like I've said before, I don't eat mushrooms all the time. I got to be in the mood to do it. And I also want to make it clear that I don't refrain from eating mushrooms. It's not like, oh, I ate mushrooms last night, I better wait a day or two. I eat them when I feel like eating them. If I ate mushrooms last night, which I did, I ate a lot of them last night. I ate them tonight, and I'm probably going to eat them again tomorrow. But if I don't feel like eating them tomorrow, I won't. So days go by where I don't eat any because I'm just not in the mood, or back's bothering me. I don't feel like sitting around with an aching back while I'm trying to enjoy my mushrooms, and so I'll just save them. So it's not like I deliberately don't do them. I just do them when I feel like it. It's just not every night. I'm planning on it tomorrow, so we'll see what happens. All right, Zini. Have hope. It is the greatest of all treasures. Thoughts and prayers, everybody. So long, and thanks for all the fish. I'll see you all on Sunday. Good night.